try to follow the signs. That's how I live my life.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
हाँ जी जनाब आज तुसने किया 12 बजे वे
जरा फैमिली की बाहर खड़ना चाहना या खिलाने पिलाने से सोचना कुथे जाओ
इसी च परेशानी वाली कड़ी गल है इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट पर जाओ उते फ्री पार करो उन्होंने मजेदार ते स्वादले पाकिस्तानी इंडियन चाइनीज ते इटालियन आय 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 खाने ना ते जोड़ी कोई नहीं नाले सस्ते ते स्वादले
ए तेरा अक्सर इसका मतलब है बटवा भी नहीं होला होनेगा इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट वैरायटी ऑफ डिलीशियस डिशेस के अलावा जेलाटो आइसक्रीम एंड वॉफल्स भी करते हैं वीकेंड्स पर अपना टेबल बुक करवाइए और वीकडेज तशरीफ ले आइए ओपनिंग आवर्स शाम 5 बजे से रात 10:30 बजे तक इब्राहिमी रेस्टोरेंट 63 Sycamore Avenue Peterborough PE1 4JP टेलीफोन 01733 313131
HS Lawyers make it so simple. Contact Majid Sarwar or Asad Arif today for any matters relating to immigration, family, business or property. Google HS Lawyers to see why we're the highest reviewed firm in Peterborough, with over 500 testimonies on our honesty, speed and excellent communication, making your legal matter simple, easy and stress-free. Contact us today on 01733 703 978. That's 01733 703 978 or email us at peterborough@hs-lawyers.co.uk. HS Lawyers, built on values of integrity and respect, with offices in Peterborough and throughout the West Midlands.
It's estimated that 5,760 children become orphaned every day, and the numbers are rising. UKIM ensures that the orphans we sponsor receive healthcare, food, education and shelter to show them that there are people who care. This Ramadan, from just £30 per month, you can make a real change in an orphan's life. Your sponsorship will provide them with much needed essentials to ease their situation. For orphan sponsorship, call now or visit ukim.org.
Where can you get high quality and low prices? Amar Food Store and Halal Meat in Lincoln Road, Triangle is the place to go. Pay us a visit and take advantage of our special offers and great range of products on groceries, vegetables, fruits and halal meat. Also send money to Pakistan absolutely free. We have all top brands at special offers, offer free customer parking and provide a free local delivery service. Amar Food Store and Halal Meat, 613B Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call us on 01733 687 374. High in quality, low in prices.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh cream cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE, and your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
If you want to learn about Islam and Muslims, stay tuned to Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening and welcome to Why Politics Matters here on Salam Radio 106.2 FM, and I'm in the studio with Alex Blur. Alex, good evening. Let's try that again. Alex, good evening.
Good evening and salam alaikum.
That was all my fault. I didn't even put your microphone up. My apologies. Because my head's in this topic that we're going to discuss today. Genuinely, it's kind of been rattling around in my mind today. We've been talking about a few things going on, haven't we, over the last few days? And I know you've been very disturbed by what's going on in different parts of the country. But the topic today is Britain's foreign policy and its response to immigration and asylum.
Yeah.
Peterborough kind of very, very close to the coalface with this as well, aren't we?
We are, and seemingly being pushed in front of that coalface, forward and forward by people that we are told have our best interests at heart as well.
Not even told. I mean, the people that you'd expect to have our best interests. It's absolutely their role to have our best interests at heart. So obviously what we're talking about is the asylum seekers and the refugees that we have currently being housed at a couple of hotels in Peterborough.
Yeah, and really, I suppose what's brought this to the forefront and so important to speak about today is the events that many of our listeners will probably have heard of that happened in Knowsley, just outside Liverpool, at the weekend, where a large group of, I'm going to call them what they are, fascist right-wingers, approached a hotel that was housing asylum seekers and refugees.
Right. Okay. So as I always do whenever we have a chat about this, I try and understand it, and I want you to help me try and understand it, because Liverpool is a red city, and by red I mean political leanings. It's pretty socialist. It's pretty left leaning, generally speaking. It's the old red wall. It's one of the, I think it's, I don't know, 42 of the 43 wards in Liverpool are red, completely red. It's just like a fully red council, and you tend to get socialist left-leaning people with a lot more understanding of people of a similar social class to them. And this is what we have. We have people of a working class background, predominantly. You don't get middle class, upper class people hanging around outside a centre or a hotel being used to house people who are in desperate need. So how does that dynamic work? I don't get it.
I know, and it was a difficult one to unpick for myself as well, looking through it. From what
because Liverpool of all places, do you know what I mean?
I know, and it makes you wonder about Peterborough and how we could ever possibly form any sort of resistance to something that on our doorstep, if somewhere like Liverpool is able to fall victim to these narratives, and it does fall down to narratives again, which is something that keeps coming up on this show, false narratives and discourse, and seemingly from trying to unpick the events which have happened throughout social media, mainly via Twitter and TikTok, on what led to the attack on the hotel. I've been able to narrow it down to there being two prevalent narratives and sources of discourse.
I know the one, and it's highly dubious, highly suspicious.
Are you referring to the video of the young girl?
So there was a young girl who was on camera. You couldn't see her. You couldn't really see him.
Nor could you identify where in the country it was taking place.
There was an element of a Liverpudlian accent.
Yeah, there was. There was, but look, there is here now as well.
Yeah, there is. There is.
And that doesn't be rare.
And it was all hearsay. Because it was just a girl saying, I'm 15. You don't know if the girl was 15. Not that should make a difference, but I'm just saying.
No, it shouldn't. So and people should.
We're talking about it because we both know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
For the benefit of our listeners, then describe the video that went online in and around Liverpool.
Yeah,
what was this
okay.
Video?
So basically the camera is pointing at the ground the majority of the time. You see no faces in it whatsoever. It starts off with a girl with I would say a possible Liverpudlian accent. Say that again, friend. And he says something, you can't hear it very clearly, but he is obviously trying to approach the girl in a soliciting kind of way. There's no question about that whatsoever. That's what's trying to be.
Yeah, he's definitely trying
alleged.
to.
Yep. And she points out, no, I'm 15. We don't do that in this country. You go to jail for that. The man seems, from that, less than perturbed by what she said.
Yep.
Then the video ends. So, first of all, we do not know where this man is from. Okay, we do not know if he's an asylum seeker, whether he's a refugee, whether he's just somebody that's been in the country,
whether he's a British citizen, potentially. You
exactly.
Don't know. Yeah.
Secondly, we don't know where this is taking place. Okay, so
thirdly, we don't know if the girl's 15.
We know nothing. There's nothing verifiable for this.
And fourthly, we don't know if she walked away and he walked away and nothing beyond that happened after determining that she was 15. So this video has been doing the rounds in, am I okay to say, right-wing circles in and around Liverpool? Is that what it was?
And it wasn't, I mean, this is the thing about these things, isn't it, is that when you get a dog whistle of something that suggests that your children are at risk, it has the effect of not just bringing in right-wingers, but also people on the middle ground, and sometimes
I'll have a response to that.
Even people on the left will be taken in by this, because we all want to fight for our streets, for the safety of our streets and for equality, and if we know there's somebody vulnerable at risk, then even us, especially us on the left, are the first to jump up and try and support this. But what that does
and what was the
mean-
second thing then? So that was the first thing. I was familiar with that. What was the second thing?
Well, the other narrative was around the costs. Apparently, it is costing.
Oh my God! When they talk about cost, like, do you know what PPE contracts cost us? Do you know what track and trace cost us? Like, you're talking
Pennies
about
in
a
the
few
ocean.
100 million versus hundreds of billions.
But here's the thing: as much as that we're talking about that, I'd actually just like to discuss these costs for a moment. And what people need to realise is that whilst these people are being housed in these hotels, they're under the guidance of a company that manages that hotel whilst they're there. It's no longer being managed by the hotel itself. Okay?
Yep.
If the hotel has a spa, that spa is not managed anymore. It might be a 5-star hotel, but do not believe that these 5-star facilities are still being run. In fact,
I've been into Great Northern Hotel a few times.
Right.
I've met with the people who are looking after the asylum seekers and refugees.
Okay.
It's not the Great Northern Hotel that it
Correct.
used to be. It's just a building.
Yep.
It's
And that's what
just
it's
a
being
building.
used as. And
It's
they're
got a
bringing their own
beautiful
staff.
chandelier in a beautiful dining room with a dining table which is just full of old clothes and boxes that are empty and whatever, and people have just donated stuff, and it's a wreck. It's not the kind of place that I would say was a pleasant place to be by any stretch of the imagination. And it's very different to what it was like a year ago.
Sure. So the fact that the narrative that they're being held in these hotels, and
5-star
having a
hotels,
life of Riley is clearly false.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? But the other thing here as well is that whilst they're there, they cannot work. They're not paying into this system. These companies that take over these hotels have shareholders. They have CEOs. They have people on very, very big bucks. It is them that is taking this money and are making a very, very large profit from it. Yes, your taxes are paying for that, but it's the MPs who are allowing this to happen instead of allowing processing centres to happen to get these people's applications seen. What they're doing is creating them as being a source of anger for you, whilst they help Tory party donors take tax payments, take your money. Now, if we were to be able to process these people and get them the immigration status that they reach, should they be accepted for that, then what happens is that they're then able to work in proper jobs, pay into the system, pay their taxes, and then all the data shows immigrants pay more into the system per individual than what the natives are. So they actually become a positive for our economic basis.
Yeah.
The only thing that stops them being an economic basis and having you as something to be angry about because of them costing the taxpayer is the MPs in charge. So if you're rocking up to a hotel to get angry about the costs, you're really having a go at the wrong people, aren't you? Because those people in that hotel are totally powerless to do anything about what you're angry about. You'd be better rolling up to your local MP's office.
Absolutely. Let's look at it like this. If I was the owner of a hotel, right, whatever that hotel might be, and somebody from central government comes to me and says, we're going to house some asylum seekers in your city. You have a hotel. We'd like for you to close shop and house our asylum seekers, because it's our legal obligation to house these people. Nobody's putting these up, out of the goodness of their heart. It's the British government's legal responsibility to safely house these people, and they're using hotels to do it. Now, if I'm that hotel owner and the government says that to me, I'm going to say, right, I'm going to have to pay my staff. Whether they're there or not, I can't lay them off because I'm going to then I'm going to have some kind of renovation budget for after the asylum seekers have moved out. Then I'm going to have the period of time where I'm not going to be collecting revenue. So I'm going to need some money for while they're there. And then I'm going to add all these numbers up, and I'm going to have my profit margin. And I'm going to have, I don't know, the loss of business because I've housed refugees. And I'm going to make up all sorts of stuff. And I'm going to say my bill to you is going to be £150 per person per night. And I'm happy for you to put in 60, 70, 80, 100, right? So if it's 100 people at £150 per night, what's that? £150,000 a night. What is it? £15,000 a night. I'll be on £15,000 a night, paying my staff who are sat at home not working because they don't need to look after refugees. And I'm getting a return on my investment. So as a hotel owner, what am I doing it for? Purely for monetary gain.
For the profit only, of course, yeah.
Not out of the goodness of my heart supporting them.
Absolutely not.
And then the government's not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They've got a legal obligation to house these people in a sensible way. What was the asylum processing centre near the coast that was 2 or 3 times overpopulated and substandard.
Children laying on concrete floors.
Yeah, I forget the name of it. It was, but that was in the news maybe a couple of months ago, wasn't it?
Months ago, somewhere down south. I do apologise. The name forgets me as well. And here's the other thing as well. I mean, with this narrative, just going back with the protect our children, there's vulnerable children in these places. I mean, these people are literally rocking up with firebombs, as happened down the south, with the narrative that we're going to a place to firebomb a place with children in it to protect children. Come on.
Yeah. So I've got some views on this. I want to share some views on this.
Please do, because I imagine this is something. And forgive me, but given our heritage, it touches you in a different way than what it does me.
Yeah, so people feel like they can say things like, so there was the grooming gangs up north that got a lot of press attention, too much press attention in my view, given the number of grooming cases around the country and how disproportionate it was reported that it was Asian or Muslim grooming gangs and so on.
It's not just that. I mean, if you put the microscope on it and you can prove whatever you want. As soon as you take that microscope off, if you have a look into it, by far the biggest perpetrators of sexual abuse against young girls in this country are white middle-class males.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You're not going to get me disagreeing with that. The point I was going to make was this. These girls who are being groomed and are being taken advantage of, they're vulnerable children.
Yes, they are.
Right? And you can't only step to their defense when a brown man is trying to groom them. You have to step to their defense before it even gets to that point. These young English working class girls have got very little oversight. They're going out, they're online, they've got an online presence and so on, and they should be allowed to do all of this. What I'm saying is nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about the fact that they're being put in positions of danger. And the reason why it happens disproportionately to, I'd say, white girls than Asian girls is because Asian girls tend to be in an environment where there's a lot more protection, regardless of the social status. I feel like there's a lot more protection for Asian girls. Otherwise,
more social
there would be
cohesion.
There's a lot more social cohesion. Otherwise, they'd be in exactly the same place. And don't for 1 minute think that predators like to prey on just white women. They've tried to prey on women, full stop. And they will look at the most easily accessible, the one that's most vulnerable. And unfortunately, white working class girls are the most vulnerable. Yeah. So I just feel so angry when people say, our women, our girls. And it's like, yeah, it is our girls, but what are you doing to protect them?
The rest of the time.
Yeah, the rest of the time. You'll jump at the opportunity to go firebomb a police van outside an asylum centre because of this random video that's been circulated that we've got no context around. But actually, when that's not happening, and they're just walking home from school, the number of times I see people on Woodston Folk saying, my daughter was walking down and she was getting literally looked up and down by motorists while she's walking back from school. And this is Oundle Road. I live there, for God's sake. Yeah. And I'm disgusted by that. But I feel like, where's the uproar when things like that happen? And yet, when it's a brown man and a completely, no context given conversation, and you end up having riots outside a hotel housing asylum seekers.
It's as if they want to go and full of firebombs in the name of the cause. But on the same hand, they won't admit that misogyny is even a problem in the UK, and it's something that leads to the damage of women's lives daily.
Yeah,
but they'll deny that.
Yeah, I mean, Faisal makes a point. It contradicts what I've just said, and I think I agree with him, to be fair. He says it happens to Asian girls too, but we don't hear about it openly for various reasons. So there's definitely an element of taboo within our community. And if somebody were a victim of abuse, unfortunately, it's less likely to be spoken about openly. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Faisal. I take that on board.
Well, as in it would be quietened down.
It'll be quietened down. Yeah, look, it's not good for our
image. Look at what happens already.
Exactly. Yeah.
And maybe
and
the
that is a
media's
shame.
got a lot to blame as well for that.
Yeah. I want to step back a little bit because I know we've kind of just dived headfirst into this show, and there's definitely a lot of things to unpick. For our listeners, definitely get your comments in, your views about asylum refugees. I want to talk a little bit about what an asylum seeker is and what a refugee is. And I know we covered this in a previous show as well. But before we do, I want to just step back to Britain's foreign policy and what we mean by foreign policy and what it looks like to us. I mean, me and you are fairly well informed on politics, I would say, without being arrogant. But at the same time, I don't think we can put our finger on what Britain's foreign policy actually is, right? I mean, it's very difficult based on their actions. Before we do that, I'm going to read a comment out from Councillor Nicola Day. Thank you, Councillor Nicola Day, for interacting. She said, I was so upset by the attacks in Knowsley. There were also attacks in Dover. These riots are a disgrace. How terrifying. They have been perpetuated by our government's right-wing agenda and language some MPs have used, including our own local MP. And yeah, absolutely. You're completely right. I mean, there's the Home Office. You say, what was the Home Office's advice on giving out information on where we're housing refugees and asylum seekers?
Well, strongly against it.
Yeah.
You know,
they actually made a point of saying our advice to our MPs is to keep the location of where the refugees and the asylum seekers are being housed as a secret.
Yeah.
Do not make it public. And many MPs, ours was one of them, many MPs went out and went against the advice from the Home Office.
And listen, I'll be the first one to say that no, I'm not going to stand and fly the flag for the Home Office either. Don't get me wrong. This isn't a pro-government show.
No, I didn't think you would.
You know?
I really didn't think you would.
Let's just get this right. But we can't allow ourselves to be dictated by discourse. Okay, and when I mean discourse, what I mean is narratives that are not based on fact. And that's what's happening here. You're not burning down all the churches. You're not gathering outside churches and getting angry, but we've got a history of paedophilia in our churches.
So it sounds like you're saying there's racist elements to what's going on.
I don't know how I can look at it any other way. When we ignore these same acts, abhorrent acts, but do not react by tarring people in the same brush. But as soon as it's somebody from across an ocean who has a little bit of a tan skin who has been involved in these, we will then tar whatever label they are attached to with the same brush. Yeah. Yeah? So let me just bring it back to the church. If you are going after all immigrants because you've seen a couple of videos, a handful of videos, one video, whatever, and you're willing to tar them all the same brush, then you have to ask yourself a very, very simple question. Why are you not standing outside churches protesting against their...
I think if the reaction was the same, I'd say that being a vicar was probably the most dangerous occupation in the country right now. Correct. Given the history.
And it's not, and nor should it be.
Never should it be.
That's
no.
not what I'm suggesting either.
Me neither,
but it certainly does hide up the fact that, no, we don't label everybody with these brushes because of the bad.
The worst that vicars get is the odd underhand, tongue-in-cheek joke comment. You're not one of them lot. It's like that, and it's like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. It was a bit, it's not socially appropriate to be calling out the clergy like that.
But do that same thing with a Muslim or a refugee, and you'll probably have a couple of people laugh.
Yeah, exactly that. So let's take it back.
Immigrants, asylum seekers.
Even before that, sorry.
Right,
what's Britain's foreign policy? What is it?
Like you said, it's a bit hard to put on. But at the minute, I would just say Britain's foreign policy is protect our borders. I can't really take it any further than that.
Yeah, So
I mean, we did have a foreign policy, didn't we? Which was rule everything that we can, take what we can, pillage what we can, and bring it back home.
So I've got a statement. That was incredibly successful for us, and by us I mean British people, and by British people I mean the establishment.
Absolutely. There was the only thing common about the Commonwealth was the fact that it was all in a common place, London.
Yes, yeah. There is a statement out there that tells you what Britain's foreign policy is. So the British foreign policy is apparently we promote democratic values, liberal societies, and the power of multilateralism.
Okay, so
and we recognise Britain's crucial international responsibility to uphold and extend these throughout the world. So uphold and extend these throughout the world. So democratic values. How democratic, and we were talking about this off air, and I do want to go on record and say this. A lot of people, myself included, certainly from my community, particularly those who are maybe not as well informed, may take the view that there's a war against Islam right now, and has been for the last 30 odd years. Pre 9/11. That's the feeling. That's the view. And Britain's part of this war. And the reason I say that is if you look at the main religious makeup of the countries that have been in the crosshairs of British foreign policy over the last 20, 30 years. Thoughts?
Well, no, you're quite right. These countries are primarily Muslim, and I can kind of understand why a lot of people on your side of the table might feel like that, without a doubt. And I think they're probably right in a certain way. I mean, if we have a look at the conflict between Islam ideology and capitalist ideology, there's certainly a lot of conflict there. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And
completely.
having a look at that side of foreign policy, of extending its ideologies further afield, well, British ideologies, let's not make any bars about it, they are capitalist ideologies. The Commonwealth and our colonial past has shown us what we do as far as extending our ideologies elsewhere, hasn't it?
The only reason I brought this up is because it says democratic societies, and one of the most democratic things that happened in and around the Middle East was the Arab Spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How well was that supported from the establishment here in the UK? It wasn't.
No,
it absolutely wasn't. One of the biggest changes as a result of the Arab Spring was the change in governing party or leader of Egypt, where we had Hosni Mubarak, who'd been there for 150 odd years or whatever. He's been there forever.
Yeah.
And nobody had any issues with him. Off the back of the Arab Spring, they claimed to support the uprising and claimed to support independent, free, fair, democratic elections. And in came the Muslim Brotherhood. They got their person elected as Prime Minister. He was given 100 days to change the country. I forget his name. I think his name was Morsi. He was given 100 days to change the country. Off the back of 100 days, some people suggest that a few small demonstrations were organised saying he's not doing a good job. In 100 days, after 25, 30 years of Hosni Mubarak rule, 100 days to make changes to a country that size, he's not made any progress. Kicked out, replaced by a dictator in Sisi.
Was this a dictator that was quite
very? I know what your question is going to be.
Friendly.
Very,
yeah,
absolutely. I've had a few more comments, and I'm going to read these out. Ian Wright says the far right is gathering momentum, bubbling under the surface, and the problem has been getting worse for the last few years. Yet this very rarely gets commented on in the mainstream media. These are racist attacks, no doubt. Really interesting.
And it's quite right. And if we have a look at the majority of arrests under the Terrorism Act, they are for far right extremists.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. If you look at, I mean, this is one of the biggest problems. I mean, there's an organisation called Prevent, which you must have come across, which was looking at stamping out extremism and terrorism. And its sole focus was on Islam and Muslims. And it's like, are you deciding where the enemy is before you've even started investigating? And in fact, a recent review said that they're going to stop looking at, and they were looking at some far-right extremism, but now they're going to stop looking at far-right extremism and just focus solely on Islamist terrorists.
So they're not there to do what they say on the can then, are they?
Absolutely
obviously not. And this is why people in your neck of the woods are going to feel that there is an attack
Completely.
on your culture.
Completely.
Because it's based on discourse, not on truth, not on data, not on the actual evidence that is at hand. And if you make a reaction, if you take action based on evidence, then nobody can put you down for that. You can justify it all the time.
Let me give you a little anecdote. You'll laugh at this.
Yeah,
I find it funny, and you shouldn't, because it's not. It's serious stuff. But a 6-year-old boy was taken by armed police back to his house because he drew a picture of his house in class, and he wrote, "I live in a terrorist house," and he replaced terrorist with terrorist.
Terrorist house.
A terrorist house.
Oh my word!
Because the only word he's hearing is terrorist. Right? He's putting an extra. This is a true story.
Yeah.
It's not a joke. The police referred him to Prevent. Prevent got armed police in his house to see if he actually lives in a terrorist house. Like, what the flip? Like, genuinely, what is that all about? I know it's anecdotes, and I know it's kind of funny, but it's horrific at the same time, isn't it? A few more comments I want to read out. Councillor Nicola Day says, definitely racist attacks, and yet I saw reports saying they were protesters. What on earth? Absolutely agree with you, Councillor Day. Faisal Mahmood said, it's only democratic values when the outcome is agreeable, especially when it comes to economic systems. Interesting, and back to what you were saying about it's a capitalist project. So I think Faisal agrees. Faisal, I'd love to get your views on Egypt. Faisal says, if the dictator is benefiting the Western countries, then it is better for them to keep the status quo. If the democratic outcomes result in someone who's more Islamic, i.e. less likely to benefit economic systems, then it's likely that they won't play ball when it comes to economic policy.
Spot on. Who was that comment by?
Faisal Mahmood.
Yeah,
Faisal Mahmood.
no, absolutely.
And this is why we'll come back to it. Guys, we're going into a break. Listen.
I need to give a retort to that.
So
yeah, definitely.
You ever think about that? We've got lots and lots to talk about. That first half went too fast. Hopefully we'll have plenty more time to discuss more on this topic. Join us in about 4 minutes.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. Cheers.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Thinking of laser hair removal but worried about cost? Well Skin Clinic, Peterborough's #1 aesthetic clinic, offers 0% finance on courses of laser hair removal. We perform thousands of treatments using the Soprano titanium in our prestigious clinic. Virtually pain-free and suitable for all skin types, our team of aesthetic professionals can help you achieve your goals affordably. Well Skin Clinic, making life-changing aesthetic treatments affordable for all. 40 Cowgate, Peterborough. Call or WhatsApp us on 01733 555540.
Peterborough. Who said good quality fried and grilled chicken has to be expensive? At Sam's, we take pride in every piece of chicken that leaves our kitchen. Just one bite of our chicken or burgers is all it takes to realise we are the best. Visit us at our brand new place at 333 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PF. Or order a delivery through Just Eat, Uber or Deliveroo. Sam's, the home of great tasting chicken for over 30 years.
And this is a race against time. We urgently need you now to donate your zakat and sadaqah and to save lives across the world.
When you have clothes, you can cover up. When you have food, you don't go hungry. When you have ways to keep warm, you don't feel the cold so much. Don't forget to help them survive through winter.
So that's why we urgently need you to come forward now and donate your zakat and sadaqah at muslimhands.org.uk.
Keep them warm, keep them alive.
Where can you get high quality and low prices? Amar Food Store and Halal Meat in Lincoln Road Triangle is the place to go. Pay us a visit and take advantage of our special offers and great range of products on groceries, vegetables, fruits and halal meat. Also send money to Pakistan absolutely free. We have all top brands at special offers, offer free customer parking and provide a free local delivery service. Amar Food Store and Halal Meat, 613B Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call us on 01733 687 374. High in quality, low in prices.
Do you own a restaurant or takeaway? Cater Fair is an expert supplier of new and used commercial catering equipment. Visit caterfair.co.uk for quality equipment on sale at the lowest prices. Or call us on 01733 310 115 or visit us at 11 Royce Road, Fengate, Peterborough.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh cream cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE, and your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
at Salam Radio.
This is Why Politics Matters 106.2 FM. We're back live on a show on Britain's foreign policy and its response to immigration and asylum. And Alex and I have just had a very heated conversation about how the show is going to go from this point, because there's so many angles that we can take this down. But I want to start by reading some of the comments that we've had during that break. And we really, really appreciate your comments. And there's definitely one or two that I'd like to unpick.
Before we do, if we could just go back to Faisal's comment. Briefly.
If the dictator is benefiting the Western countries, then it's better for them to keep the status quo. If the democratic outcome results in someone who's a little bit more Islamic, then it's likely they won't play ball when it comes to economic policy.
Yeah, Faisal, the first thing that I thought of immediately when Imtiaz read out your comment was what's been going on in Turkey and their war against the Kurds. Oh, sorry, I say war, their campaign of genocide against the Kurdish people. Kurdistan doesn't exist on a map anymore.
No.
For those who may or may not know, Erdogan has been carrying out bombing on the Kurdish Project, which is a socialist commune in the northwest region of Rojava. They're self-autonomous and welcome anybody. Yeah, this is not a Kurdi, just
tell
a
me
Kurdish
a little bit
project.
about this, because I know a little bit, but I don't know a lot. So I know there's pockets of Kurdish people in southeast Turkey, northwest Syria. Are there any other countries? Because I know there was Kurds in Iraq.
Kurds are spread all over the place. I mean, what we're talking here is the Syrian Kurds, and they have created a place of safety for them. You've got to remember that these people were surrounded by enemies. You've got the Turkish to the northwest, Assad's regime to the south.
Yep.
And ISIS to the northeast.
Yeah.
Now, they also became the most effective ground force in fighting Islamic Islamism. The Americans joined forces with them, not supporting that whatsoever. You've got to understand these people's course. And what that done was it protected them from the Turkish for a couple of years. As soon as the Americans pulled out of Rojava, or the Kurdish project, Turkey carried on its campaign of bombing. It does most of its bombing at night. And on the day of the Turkish earthquake, which was only just last week, the Turkish earthquake, Monday morning, it affected northwestern Syria and the whole of Kurd as well. Monday night, whilst the Rojavan people and the Turkish people were all searching for the survivors in the rubble, Turkey carried on its bombing. So whilst they were excavating the survivors from their lands, they also had to worry about fighter jets bombing bombs on them. These fighter jets are being bombed by a place where us Brits go on holiday very, very often.
So, I mean, your point is this. Your point is that might be an Islamic republic, but it's very open to capitalist ideas.
Absolutely.
And happy to trade.
Yep.
And it's a great holiday spot for a lot of Brits. Retirement options for a lot of Brits, and we import a lot of stuff and export a lot of stuff to Turkey. So it's feeding the capitalist system.
And the people in Turkey will not feel this narrative that you're mentioning about the war against Islam, because the people of Turkey have basically just bent over under the guise of Erdogan, who I believe was actually installed by the West.
I don't know about his roots, but I know he's got a lot of supporters. I know he's got a lot of supporters from traditional, Muslim factions, as well as some secularists. But he does have a lot, and he does reference Islam in a lot of his speeches as well. And then he's a massive supporter of the whole revival of the Ottoman Empire, and we need to be proud Muslims, and all that kind of stuff. So he does go on to that. There's a few more comments. Barry Warren's talking about the protests, if you want to call them protests. There was a march and protest outside of Skegness Hotel last week, which luckily didn't turn violent. It was billed as, oh, you're going to love this, it was billed as veterans before illegals.
Oh, that's right, because the one thing that's stopping this Conservative government, or even this imperialist government currently, of helping our illegals is the immigrants, isn't it? Let's get this right. There's plenty to go around. We've got enough houses to not just house all our veterans, house all our homeless people, and still have over 150,000 empty homes to carry on helping asylum seekers and refugees. Don't draw that line of
no, I don't think Barry is. I think
Barry's
just
not. Yeah, sure. I know Barry's.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and this is really what frustrates me, because it's like, you know what? It's like when we spend money in foreign aid, it's like, let's look after our own. Who's looking after? Are you looking after our own? I can't give to that cause. They're going to look after our own. Are you giving charity locally? You're not. Of course you're not. So I don't buy that. He goes on to say, I believe the protesters were from places other than Skegness. It sounds like there's a group of far-right extremists organising and travelling to these events.
Yeah, he's quite right, unfortunately. And that's kind of the reason why I thought it was really important to have this show with...
So it's there is genuinely an organised network, isn't there?
There is, and they're probably a little bit more organised than what we are as well, let's be honest about it. They're militant, they come from all over the place, and they come down on the trains. If we have a look at where the location of the Great Northern Hotel is...
It's right next to a train station, Alex.
I would gather...
It's literally, you come out and it's in front of you.
With the narratives that we're hearing from our local MP almost beating the grass as if he wants this to happen, I feel that we need to be very, very careful.
Elaine Parkins says, at least Sky and BBC use the words far right in their description when they're reporting. GB News just ignored the problem. And that's important because we do need to recognise it, don't we? We do need to recognise what it is and see it for what it is. And not just, far right extremism, but then when you're setting police vans on fire, that's an act of terror by a far right extremist group, isn't it? Isn't it? Or is that a bit stretched too far? A serious question, genuinely.
I feel now, it's very difficult to put these labels on it. I'm not going to say that everybody there belongs to the far right. I'm not going to say that everybody that was there on the side of the protest that was going to the hotel is on the far right. However, your actions that night were right-wing.
Yes.
You are reacting to right-wing dog whistles. You're reacting to right-wing narratives that are being perpetuated, and your actions are born from right-wing sentiment.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Barry Warren goes on to say there were suggestions on social media that one of the Skegness mob is a pal of Lee Anderson MP. Now, Lee Anderson MP has been in the news recently. He's become deputy chairman of the Conservative Party.
Correct.
He was the one pushing for the return of the death penalty. He was the one that tried to con a journalist by knocking on a random door, but it was actually the door of his mate, and he had his mate say all these things about how there's too many of them lot around here, we need to kick them out and all this, and he was acting all surprised, and he got caught out with his he's literally got caught out. But
and imagine choosing that as your friend.
Yeah, but this is it. He wanted it to look like this was the man on the street.
Yeah.
And the man on the street wants these asylum seekers out when actually it's his mate. Barry goes on to say, I understand the Sunday Mirror ran a story about them being acquaintances today. Interesting. Yeah. Nicola and Faisal educating each other. Love to see that. Talking about what the reasons were for the drawing of the lines of India and Pakistan. And we're talking about how we had East Pakistan and West Pakistan, and now East Pakistan's become Bangladesh. And it was just, the biggest exodus of humans in history. So
perpetuated by British foreign policy?
Quite possibly. It was certainly British foreign policy.
Yeah.
But I think capitalist interests.
Yeah.
The East India Company apparently was one of the main drivers for that. So lots and lots to unpick. Let's step back again. We have to step back. We just keep diving in. What is war? What is war? Tell me what war is. Is it a new invention?
Oh God, no.
Is it an old invention?
I'm probably not the best person to ask this question, because I think in order to define what war is, you're almost seeking to justify it in your definition, and I'm not sure I can.
I like the answer.
Yeah,
I like the answer, because you're saying there's no justification for war.
I cannot feel one. No, I'm not saying that there's no justification for violence ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that there's no justification for you to mobilise en masse for a cause.
Yeah. All right. So let me give you an example of a group of people, let's say 50 million people live in a country administered by an absolute brutal dictator, and they want to be rescued from this dictator, and they don't have the means. If they try and build up some political opposition, they literally, their parents get kidnapped, the kids are murdered, whatever, I don't know, they get jailed for 50 years. So any kind of building of resistance against a brutal dictator is stamped down so hard that somebody from the outside needs to come in and rescue these people, because people are what matter, right?
Sure.
It's people that matter.
Absolutely.
Right. So what would happen in the... Go on.
If you're going in from the outside, then you are going to kill some of the people that you are looking to save, aren't you?
Collateral damage is the term that they use.
That's the term, right? And it's not a term you will ever hear me use.
Horrible.
Because it takes away the human quality of what's actually happening. I've actually heard this used in educational settings, and I will not stand for it. Collateral damage should never ever be something that is used for the justification of anything, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But the point remains, if you are going into an area from the outside, then you are going to cause deaths of innocents.
Yeah.
if there is a dictatorship and it needs toppling, then that's for the people underneath that dictatorship to decide. Yeah, sure, we can support them in their battle. But to go in and and start bombing things to remove something that you don't agree with, no, I'm sorry, I can't get behind that.
Yeah, because I just think, like, you know, what is the cost? What is the actual cost? And the cost is human life, number one.
Yeah.
Right. Number two, just the way of life of the people. Even though they might be oppressed, they've still got kids going to school. Schools will be bombed. Hospitals will be bombed. Roads will be bombed. Bridges will be bombed. Right. Crops will be destroyed. Livestock will be killed. Right. So the actual cost of an aerial bombardment, for example, as opposed to something that maybe, you know, people accuse the CIA of doing, going in and targeting, assassinating people, key people within an organization, because any kind of brutal dictatorship. But I guess the reason I'm coming to you with this is, you know, I guess at the end of a war, somebody wins and somebody loses, right? Everybody loses, I know. Everybody loses, yeah. But officially, some army concedes to another army. Borders are redrawn, potentially.
Okay. Yeah, they are. They are, and to a certain extent, this country's landmass changes or whatever. So I'm going to bring it back actually in a moment, and we're using. So let's actually define, and I think we might have touched on this on the first. So what defines a country? And there's an argument out there by some of the greater minds in sociology that a country or a national state is defined as a entity which has successfully monopolised the use of violence and the extent to which that use of violence extends to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So Britain is dictated as being a country by how it monopolised the violence here. It rules by law, and the law is a threat of violence, and its borders are how far the monopoly of that violence extends, and when you cross them, you're now in another entity's monopoly of their violence.
All right, so I'm going to challenge you there, right? So what about the extent to which its National Health Service extends to, or its benefit system extends to, or its opportunity of a free education extends to? Because you could say the extent of its violence, but there's violence to maintain control.
Sure.
Then there's taxation to fund services and whatever. And
then
then there's
also
actual
violence to police that taxation.
Yeah, and then there's also a rolling out of services.
Absolutely,
that people that live within those rules and accept the violence if they were to not pay their taxes.
There you
right?
go. You've just put it on there.
Yeah.
Accept the violence.
Accept the threat of violence is what I should have said.
Right.
Okay, but go on.
So everything you've just been said there is something that's been perpetuated, again, through the threat of violence, and that if you live within a country, you have no choice what to opt to.
I feel like I've let you down. I feel like I've said something, I'll let you down.
No, not at all, not at all. But you can't opt out of these things.
No, you can't.
Yeah, and in order for you to tick these boxes and do as what is expected of you of living within these states, is the threat of violence to ensure that. Then that's what it boils down to. At the end
And
of the
then
day,
some countries are better than others.
Yeah.
Right. Some countries
we've got
are
away from the point here a bit, haven't we? Yeah.
No, yeah. So moving back. So borders continue to change, right? Wars have been raged for millennia, right? And borders constantly change. And every time you set a border, you know it's not permanent because somebody's going to come and they're going to challenge you or whatever. And I just wanted to bring it to the current war that we're hearing a lot about is the war in Ukraine. It's areas of Ukraine that have basically been annexed by Russia, and Ukraine is a sovereign state. It has the right to maintain and protect its borders, and it has a right over its civilians and its citizens. So, what right does Russia have of going in and annexing those bits of land? Thoughts?
Absolutely none.
Okay,
I don't believe so. I mean, there's certainly arguments for it. I've heard that certain parts of this of Ukraine on that side actually wanted to be Russian. There's also the shared story of birth. Russia and Ukraine were both born out of Kiev. So there's going to be a crossover of beliefs and ideologies.
Sure.
Some people feel that they're more Russian than Ukrainian, and some people feel they're more Ukrainian than Russian. Unfortunately, that's the two tails of the beast given the origins of the nation, But for me, that doesn't mean that one country can just roll in and take what it wants. Of course, Ukraine also have the right to defend that, but then it comes on at a different place, doesn't it? And where do we belong in this?
Yeah, where do we belong in this? But just before we get there, I just think, what is the average person on the streets role in this? So the average, so let's say,
well, they don't even have a choice.
They don't have a choice.
Ukrainians are being marched to the front line, where I believe the average life expectancy is just 4 hours.
4 hours, yeah. So this is what I'm saying to you. Like, if I'm Ukrainian and I'm in Ukraine right now, and I might be a proud Ukrainian, I might love my flag and all that kind of stuff. But if Russia's on my doorstep, it's flipping Russia. Yeah. It's not a joke.
Doesn't mean that you want to go out there.
I don't want to go out there, and I don't want to sacrifice me and my wife and my kids and my friends and my history.
No.
You know, and my house and my buildings and the school I went to, my future, my kids' future. I don't want to sacrifice all that in a bloody war that we're ultimately going to lose to a superpower with nuclear weapons just because I like my flag and I like my nation. I'd rather just say, you know what? If the international community can't put enough pressure on Russia to let us be autonomous, then I don't want a bloody war. Genuinely, I don't. I'm as committed as I am to my own country, as you know, whatever you want to call it. I would not want that. Who would want that? Even the Russian army don't want that. The Russian army don't want to. The people serving in the army don't want to be going into other countries and killing people and putting themselves at risk and staying away from their families and stuff. So why are we forcing Zelensky or encouraging Zelensky, empowering Zelensky, giving him tanks? And why don't we just tell him his fight's lost? Why don't we just tell him his fight's lost? Save your people.
We're not giving him tanks, are we?
No, we're not giving him tanks, but we're talking.
But the answer's there. We're selling them tanks.
Why does everything have to come back to capitalism?
Yeah. We're selling them tanks, we're selling them planes, and they're both having a great laugh about it, all at our expense.
Yeah. I've just read a brilliant comment which you're going to love. Elaine Parkin says, the Dalai Lama has a wonderful quote about war. War is like a fire in the human community, one whose fuel is living beings.
Wow.
That's knocked me a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah. And I agree with the sentiment wholeheartedly, yeah.
So, people don't want war. Not the attacking armies. The armies don't want war. The soldiers, working class people don't want war.
Rich people, oligarchs, the parasite class, CEOs, shareholders, they all do very, very well out of war.
But then why are we so easily duped into thinking this wars are good and we back our forces and, you know, and we're going to stand in solidarity and we're going to do this, we're going to do that? Well, why do we do that? Why do we do that?
There's a lot of psychology at play there, I suppose, isn't there? Internalising these beliefs, we seem to think that, certainly not me, but some people seem to think that an assault on a national identity is an assault on our personal identity.
It's absolutely not. This is what I'm saying to you, like, honest to God. Like, okay, so I'm ethnically Pakistani.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't care that I'm ethnically Pakistani. I love the land. I love where we're from. I've been there. I've visited. It's beautiful. But the fact that there's a flag attached to it or a name for a nationality attached to it doesn't make any difference. No. Shakespeare said, didn't he, a rose by any other name, would it not smell as sweet? Right? If you called me Indian, but I'm from the same place, living the same life, what difference does it make? You call me Turkish. If I'm the same place, living the same life, what difference does it make? And why is it that people are so adamant? And if they are adamant, and this is the other thing that really gets me, like, if you're adamant that you want to protect the autonomy of every country out there, then draw a map that's going to be permanent. And then have the whole world sign up to the protection of those borders. All agree to it and say, these are the countries. Nobody can take over another country unless there's an actual democratic referendum where both countries agree to become one, or an individual country agrees to split into two. And then we won't have. Then we can all get behind something, right? Then somebody infringes on somebody else's territory, and we can all get behind that
and be upset, rightfully so together.
Rightfully so together.
And this is where it falls apart, isn't it? This as if we're there to protect the Ukrainian borders from Russia, as if we actually, our rich people, our governments actually care about the Ukrainian people. And if they do, why do they care about the Ukrainian people? and not the people that were bombed by Turkey? Why do they care about the Ukrainian people and not the people that are being held in Gaza or the borders, which change every single day under the state of Israel's actions?
Yeah, Faisal says not going to happen. You can't make money from that. Faisal's on board, mate. Faisal's pretty much anti-capitalist, just like us.
And I had you down as a Tory.
I don't know where you got that from. Why would you? Why would you even think that? Faisal says fighting should be a last resort and war should be avoided. But humans have fought each other ever since day one, and I can't see it stopping, especially with nationalist thinking.
But fighting each other is not war.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we can have a fight.
Yeah. We often do.
We do. But we don't destroy each other's homes. You know, we don't install a different culture to stop them ever holding the identity that they held before we had that fight again. And that's what war does to people.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crazy. One other comment I want to read out and then just go off on a bit of a tangent because I think we're encouraged to do so. This is from Councillor Nicola Day again. She says, why was it that Ukrainian refugees were offered homes and bedrooms compared to asylum seekers from other places? And I really want to pick up on this, and I think we mentioned this in a previous show as well. I've got 5 minutes to go. News coverage of the war in Ukraine, particularly in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, it was all these anchors sitting in their studios or out reporting from the field saying stuff like, these people look like us. These people have blonde hair, blue eyes. This isn't the kind of place where you'd expect to be a war zone. You wouldn't expect bombs to be being dropped on these kinds of people. Their children look like our children. And I'm like, can you hear what you're saying? Can you hear it from a brown person's ears?
I've heard it said to me, but these people have blonde hair and blue eyes.
How is that a passport for you to avoid war? How can anyone in their right mind, and this is mainstream media...
Isn't it actually hiding something else? Isn't underneath that actually
Bring it out.
Quite a bit of a Nazi rhetoric.
Incredibly.
Yeah, because you're not just saying these people look like us and therefore that's why we should help. What you're also saying is that we're not helping those others because they don't look like us.
That's the first thing I heard. The first thing I heard was the war in Afghanistan is fine because they're brown.
Yeah.
The war in Gaza and in the West Bank is fine because they're brown. The war in Libya and in Syria and in parts of Rohingya, exactly.
Cambodia,
Malawi, all over Africa. It's all fine because they don't have blonde hair, blue eyes. But if it happened in Norway or Sweden,
God, can you imagine?
Or Germany, or Ukraine or Finland or France, we're not going to have that. We're not going to have that. Not in Belgium. Can't have it in Switzerland. Can't have it in Liechtenstein. Give us a list of countries where war's not allowed. We won't do it. We'll go elsewhere. You know,
I'd argue that list was already made.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying, don't you?
Yeah, I get it. Expand though, for the benefit of our listeners. But yeah,
if you're in a white country, then we will all group together and we will protect it against others.
So somebody disagree with us. I mean, we're both sat here and it sounds like an echo chamber because I feel like there is, there's definitely capitalist interests, but also white supremacist type feeling, sentiment around who's our friend and who's our foe. You're either with us or against us. George Bush said that. Do you remember?
Very binary, isn't it?
Yeah, very binary.
Again,
and it's like,
I find that fascist. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
With us or against us. It's no room for discussion.
Yeah, I'll give you a little perspective from where I look at the world. I've had the benefit of traveling, not too extensive, but I've been to a fair number of countries, and I've been to Iceland, and I've been to Portugal. Okay, and I mentioned those two just because Iceland is white. Like, it is white. It is super white. The only non-white people were tourists.
Swedish white, isn't it?
Yeah, proper white. And not that I've got any issues with white people, but it was white. And I felt odd. I felt different. I felt out of place.
How was your welcoming?
Strange.
Right.
Yeah, I felt like a doll, a puppet, a toy.
Right.
I felt like a novelty. They were nice, but they were nice because I was brown.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's horrible.
Oh, almost fetishized.
Yeah, exactly that. And I went to Portugal, and genuinely, I love Portugal because there's black Portuguese people, and there's brown Portuguese people, and there's white Portuguese people, and there's blonde, and there's dark head and brown head, and they're all Portuguese. And you feel it. You walk down the streets and you feel it. There's no there's no judgment for you feel that's what I feel. I mean,
Sure.
Portugal's had its problems, but it's so far past that because it's such a multicultural
Because it's
society.
accepted what its problems were and had a look at them in a really honest way.
Yeah. So I know this show was about war, foreign policy, and immigration inside. And we've definitely covered a number of those things, but
I feel it's been a whirlwind stop again.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I really appreciate the comments as well, and people just trying to.
It's felt like I think you mentioned this earlier, but it's kind of felt like we've had two shows running today,
Yeah.
side by side, two subjects that do obviously touch on each other, but they could have almost had a show totally to themselves.
Yeah, I think you'll like what Faisal says. He says it's capitalism versus the other, not necessarily racist. Race is used for public support because people relate to it. That's an excellent point.
But always the other.
Yeah, and Nicola just ends with, there should be no flags, nationalism, or borders. Now that's you're genuinely talking my language there, Nicola. That's exactly what I feel like. I feel like there is no need. There is no need to have borders. There is no need.
I mean, we kind of make friends based upon our interests, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when our interests align, we form friendships, and really, that's how our relationships generally should be. However, the upper classes, we have very little to align ourselves with.
Guys, phenomenal show. The time has flown. Thank you so much for joining us. Alex, thank you again.
Very much,
Thank you to
and good
everyone's
night.
comments, and we'll be back again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Salam Radio, and it's now time for Isha Azan.